use the TS10. This does so much of what this is doing, but with those lows retained. In a world where new guitar pedals are released every day and new bass pedals come out once every 6 to 8 weeks, bass players throughout the globe have begun to lose hope. But one man is determined to answer the question on every bass player's mind. Can all guitar pedals be used as bass pedals? Is it on? You want me to do the thing now? Yes, you can use any guitar pedal as a bass pedal, but if a pedal isn't optimized for bass, then there's a good chance that you're going to run into some obstacles. That's what I'd like to talk about in this video. There's 3 types of bass pedals that I really enjoy, and the first one is preamp pedals. That's a pedal like this. This Sans amp I have had for probably 12 to 15 years, something like that. I've had it a long time. This sucker is one of the first pedals that I ever bought, and I've kept it that long because it's so good for bass. I used to use it going in front of my bass amp, but nowadays I don't use a bass amp. I just plug this guy into the PA, and that's all you need. Honestly, it kind of sucks that we don't really need bass amps anymore. I think it would be appropriate for us to take a moment of silence for all of us not using our bass amps anymore. Amen. Okay, so this is a programmable Sans amp, just direct straight into my interface. A good sound, but we can do better. Enter the Sans amp. It's just got so much more weight and oomph while also adding clarity. Whatever the good people at Tech 21 are doing to make these things, my hat's off to them. The important thing about a preamp pedal like this is it is acting as a tone shaper for you. It's going to be your EQ. It has the ability to add dirt, especially if you're playing a passive bass. This can do a lot to beef it up. I really just like it because it sounds like you plugged into an amp. That's kind of the whole point. I would highly recommend that your first bass pedal be a preamp. It doesn't have to be a Sans amp. There are cheaper options. There's also way more expensive options. This has just worked for me literally for years. The second type of bass pedal that I think we should talk about is compressor pedals. What does a compressor pedal do? Well, it compresses, as in it takes the loudest parts of your signal and it shrinks those down, and it takes the quietest parts of your signal and it boosts those up a bit. You've heard compression on basically every record you've ever listened to. Compression does the job of making things sound more polished, more finished, more even and smooth. If I can get that sound on stage, even better. I like to think of compressor pedals as 2 types, and basically you've got your really simple pedals, which this one has a compressor knob, and then you've got your really complicated pedals. There's a lot to learn on a pedal like this. If you're just starting out, I would recommend something a little bit simpler. Okay, time to look at these compressors. So here's the simple one, the Comp 66, which actually is made for guitar, but sounds great on bass. Here's without. Here's with. Without. It's subtle, but that's kind of the point. It's just gluing everything together, helping you sound a little more even. And when you really dig in, it's going to help to bring those down. And the lighter stuff that you play, it's going to help to bring those up. And then you go for a fill like this. If it's off, it might not jump out in the same way. So that's a simple one. Let's look at the complicated one. I really like how this one really accentuates when you go for a fill. It just brings all of the nuance in the fill up. Without. With. A compressor just makes you sound better. Plain and simple. All right, now on to the main event, dirt pedals. I love preamp pedals, I love compressor pedals, and usually in between those in my chain, I put a dirt pedal or two. But not every dirt pedal is gonna be great on bass. In particular, pedals like this do a certain job of reducing your low end, and you have no way to really get that back. Now, that can be a good thing if you're trying to sculpt the lows in a certain way, which is really handy on guitar. But as bass players, keeping your low end intact is important. And the last thing you want is to step on a pedal and then all of a sudden your low end goes out the window. So a pedal like this, maybe not what I would recommend for bass. However, if you add an EQ pedal into your chain, you can take a pedal like this that might be cutting some lows and then boost and put back some of the lows after it. At that point, you have to step on two pedals every time you want to use this, but it can be a way of using a pedal that happens to cut some lows, but you really like the distortion on it. Could be an option. Even though I wouldn't normally recommend a tube screamer on bass, there are some exceptions. I've been using this guy for years, since way before JHS blew up the internet with them. This is a great sounding tube screamer, especially with the JHS mod that happens to be in this one. I really like pedals like this because it has a 2-band EQ. Now, in a normal tube screamer type pedal like this, you just have the one knob to adjust tone. Well, tone on most guitar pedals just means it's going to roll off the highs. So if you want it brighter, you turn this all the way up. If you want it darker, you turn it down. But it really doesn't affect the low end. But enter a pedal like this. The Bad Monkey has a 2-band EQ. So you can effectively put the bass exactly where you want it to be. And even if the pedal itself is designed to cut lows, you can get some of that back. This is a great pedal on bass. It really is. There, now they're even more rare. Okay, so you've got these two pedals and they're both based around the same circuit. The biggest difference is that this one has a lows control, and that really does change a lot for these circuits. So here's my signal with just the compressor and the Sans amp. Here's the TS10. Now you might be saying, actually that's a pretty cool sound, and yeah, it is. If I was going to use that, I would probably need to boost the low end on this one, maybe save a second preset like I talked about earlier, have some way of compensating for the loss in the deep lows. But you don't have to do that if you've got a two-band. So that's where the Bad Monkey comes in. I don't know. It hits so much harder to me. So here's some deep lows. Like, it's just gnarly, but still full. I just really enjoy it. And yeah, where it's sitting as far as the breakup probably is closer to like a fuzz or a heavy distortion than it is an overdrive, but it's just a sound I really like. Let's try the Soul Food and see what that's like. There are plenty of dirt pedals out there that are designed for bass, but a lot of them will have a blend knob, like this guy. Blend is just adding back in a clean signal on top of your dirty signal. And a lot of the time that will bring back the lows that the dirty signal might be reducing. So for instance, if this were just a regular soul food pedal, the soul food absolutely cuts some of your lows, and this blend knob that they added to this circuit brings all of those lows back. Actually a pretty great sounding pedal. So this one I'd use for a little more of that kind of grindy sound. Honestly, kind of closer to where the TS10 is sitting, but it's retaining some of those lows with that blend knob. So let's take a look. Here's a quick refresher of the Tube Screamer. Here's the soul food. Man, this one is as gnarly as this can be, but you're keeping those lows because of that clean blend. And yeah, you got to play with knobs. Yes, I'm going for a pretty maxed out sound for this one, but I love what this pedal does, especially like hearing how good the Tube Screamer sounds everywhere except for the deep lows. This does so much of what this is doing, but with those lows retained. So what's your favorite pedal on bass? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget, if you haven't watched this video yet, this is where I go through these 7 things that will make you stop sounding like a noob and start sounding like a pro bass player. You can want to check that out. Did you click it? Okay, I'm gonna leave so you can click it. But you should really watch that.